Bang, bada bang, bada bang, bada bang, bada bang. Get the balls. Woo.
That was really good. You even started at that time.
I know. I felt weird starting it. I thought you were going, but
No, it was so good. I loved it. Welcome back to the Kilted Balls podcast. I believe, is this episode 43? 43.
How did we miss 42? I don't know where I've been.
Holy cow. We're just like movers and shakers. Yes. So welcome. We have continued our fun with liquidating. I actually sold my World of Women the other day. So that
is awesome.
Yeah, and it hasn't gone up crazy amount since then. I sold it for higher than the floor. It is now past where I sold it because I think two things. I think they're doing another art drop.
Happened today.
Yep. So I think probably people were trying to get that art drop. So that's one of the reasons why it went up. And then it's also going to be listed on the Coinbase platform. And so, went up a little bit. I'm still super happy that I sold it.
That's awesome.
And when it drops again, I think when Ethereum goes back up, that NFTs will drop again. And so I can get in whenever I want, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think I'm out for good. I kind of still like World of Women, but I definitely think there was more room to play with my ETH. So
yeah, I agree. Mine's got to be close. I listed my second woman a while ago. Okay, the floor is 2.44.
Yeah.
Mine's listed at pi, so I have a little bit of room, but I also have mine's I can't remember if it's my green or my blue that's left actually.
Ooh, one of the nice ones.
Yeah, so they seem to be getting they don't make it to the floor. So
well, and in other news, I bought a couple more ETH tonight.
Exciting.
Oh, guess what? I bought some Loop Ring.
You did?
Yeah, which one's Loop Ring?
Loop Ring is the one they are doing GameStop's.
Oh, good, because I was hoping that's what it was. When I bought my Ethereum, I put extra money in my account just in case I had, any fees that I hadn't taken into account.
Yeah.
And so I actually bought the Ethereum for less than I was going to because it was
nice.
Dropping. And so I still had like $60 in the account. And I'm like, what can I buy for $60? And so I was like flipping through everything. And I was like, wasn't it Loop Ring that I wanted? And I'm like, I think it was. So I just put all the rest into Loop Ring. So,
nice. That's awesome.
I know. I'm like, if it goes up, it goes up. That I really think it's fun. And I've done this multiple times. The last time with Solana, which wasn't awesome, but I took whatever extra I had from whatever purchase and said, I'm just going to put it into whatever. I feel like it's like when you go to McDonald's or Taco Bell and they're like, hey, would you like to round up for children's charities? Like, I feel like it's like that where I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to round up and I'll put it into this other thing and let that build. And
yeah,
the idiot in me, for those of you who don't remember, is I did that with Solana. And then for some stupid reason was like, I really want that money back. And which, I sold it for like $30.
Yeah, I was gonna say, wasn't that like $30? I mean, that was you broke even at least, right?
Well, I came out ahead.
Oh, okay. So you actually came out ahead.
Like by $2. Easy.
There you go. I mean, you wouldn't want to have it now because then you'd have to do so much more counting. It's easier to count to 30 than it is to count to 240.
You know what? That's actually why I only bought 2 Ethereum. It's like a nice even number. So, and thank you to Jason for helping, kind of push along that I should buy more Ethereum. So our buddy Jason today was like, you really should do it. It's the right time.
I love that graph he showed us. That was fun.
Yeah, I agree. So yeah, some interesting stuff. So Bitcoin and Ethereum both dropped. I think there is 2 reasons for that. And if you're listening to this, apparently you think I have opinions that you'd want to hear. So here's my 2 opinions. 3 opinions. Here's my 3 opinions, right? First off, this is what happens when you have like a week of record highs. Yeah, like it's got to do a dip. I think everybody could see that there was going to be a dip. We've been talking about you're going to see one. So that's moving force number 1. You're going to have a dip that many days in a row. Second, China did their normal China thing and said, oh, we hate miners. We're going to raise the electricity rate on them and we're going to stop these miners. That always affects the big.
Okay, I had missed that. I didn't hear that news story.
Well, and here's the one that I haven't heard a lot of people talking about. And I think I need to do more research. So if you've already done this research, maybe you can fill this in.
Okay.
But, you know, they just passed that huge infrastructure bill, right? And in the infrastructure bill, last I saw, they had a huge thing about brokers and crypto.
Yeah. Although it's not supposed to kick in until I think 2024 or 2025, if I remember correctly. So there is time to fix it. And I've heard that there are some Congress people, both sides of the aisle, coming together like we need to fix this. Like that's not okay.
There's a huge Republican lady leading the charge. Like really values that. But again, it doesn't matter when it gets fixed. What matters is people hear that and they get scared and they sell.
I agree 1,000%.
So I think those three things kind of drove that down.
Yep.
On a different note, one of the things I was talking about today was that if China did crack down on miners, which I think China will eventually, and my reason for that is because I think China wants to mine themselves.
Yeah, they want to have their own coin.
Well, no, but I think they want, even the Bitcoin, I think they want to do the mining as a government.
Oh, as the government. I see what you're saying.
Right.
So they could still be doing that.
So I think they're trying to control it because right now it's really hard to control. And so if they nab the electricity, then they can do it, but it's too much money for it. So I think they want to do that, which is good news if you're a miner, say in Germany. Right? Because if you get rid of all the Chinese miners, even if it's only for a month.
Well, look what happened. Look what happened just a few months ago. They said it was going to be illegal. All their miners closed down. They moved other places and things are back fine. It was a blip. It was a 2-3 week blip.
What I'm saying is all the other miners mined coins during that. Right?
Yep.
So because you just removed a huge section of the miners, everybody else makes a profit when that happens.
Yes.
So Bitcoin will go up and down, but the actual people doing the mining will mine more Bitcoins during that.
The hash rate did drop a little bit, though. It wasn't significant, but the hash rate dropped during that time because there were so many of them that had closed down.
No, but that's my exact point.
Yes, you're right.
It's going to drop down, which means if you are part of the what company is it? It's a German company, but it's run by Americans, right? They're a small fraction, like 9% of the Bitcoin market.
Okay.
But so like when China cut their hash rates completely out, they all of a sudden dominate the market with their hash rate.
Yes, that makes sense.
So all of a sudden they're pulling in tons of Bitcoins. So I'm like, yeah, go China, restrict them. Be the big beast.
Close them all down.
Yeah. So speaking of that, interesting story. The in-laws came over, I guess, and they were looking at different stuff and talking to my wife about Bitcoins and mining and all of that. And she's like, yeah, they're like, I just don't get it. I don't get it. And my wife was like, yeah, I don't get it either. I don't get it. And my daughter, who we talk NFTs a lot, we don't ever talk crypto. Okay. So her and I've never talked about it. My wife is like, yeah, I just don't understand it. She's like, what don't you understand? And my wife is like, well, like, what's a miner do? Like, it finds the Bitcoin and then now there's Bitcoins to the supply, or it does this or it does that. And my daughter's like, okay, so this is how it works. What a miner is it's doing a math problem. And my wife's like, right. And she goes, all it's doing is doing a math problem. And when it gets the math problem right, the teacher gives it candy. Because that's what crypto mining is. Math problem, the teacher gives you a piece of candy. To which my wife's like, this is the part that was hilarious. My wife goes, yeah, but I get that a teacher goes and buys candy from the store, but in your example, where does the teacher get the candy? And she goes, oh, from the math problem. And she goes, how does the math problem make it? She goes, that's how the math problem works. So the math problem, you get the math problem right. The math problem gives you candy, which you then use to do another math problem, which will give you candy. And she's like, how much candy is there? She goes, it's limited. And she goes, what limits it? She goes, the math problem.
Yep.
And she goes, so the math problem makes a math problem that you solve the math problem to make more math problems as you're doing a math problem. She goes, it's one big circle and you're just always doing math problems.
Mm-hmm.
My wife's like, wait, what? And I go, that is probably the best description of crypto I've ever heard.
That is awesome.
I'm like,
This is your 16-year-old, right?
this is the 16-year-old who's always understood number theory and stuff way better than a normal human. And I'm just like, I go, that is like so amazing. And then I was like,
awesome.
And she's like, so, but you know, what makes it go like do this or do that? And I'm like, oh, you changed the difficulty of the math problem. My daughter's like, right. Like if you're giving out too much candy, you just make the math problems harder and then you can't give out as much candy. And if you're not giving out enough candy, you make the math problems easier. To which point my wife goes, who's making it easier or who's making it harder? She goes, oh, the math problem does.
Mm-hmm.
She goes, so when you're doing the math problem, if it starts getting too fast, she goes, then it does others. I'm like, where did you learn this? I go, we've never talked about this. She goes, it's just common sense.
Exactly. She's so smart.
I'm like, you're right. It's just common sense. And I told my wife, I go, nobody cares where the teacher gets a candy bar from. All you care about is get a candy bar from the teacher. I go,
oh, that's so great. Or she's awesome.
Oh my gosh, so awesome.
I almost doxed her.
I'm sure we'll get doxed sooner or later. But yeah, freaking sweet. I was like, great idea. So peeps, that's my example for Bitcoins given to me by my 16-year-old daughter who says this is just common sense. So
yep. It does make a ton of sense. It does. It does.
And all those cryptos are different, people. So they don't all
Yes.
use miners, right? Ethereum will switch to a proof of stake. And so there's lots of different things. But
Yes.
Bitcoin goes with a mining protocol. And all
Yep.
a miner is it's just solving a math problem.
And that's why, especially being the limited supply, that's one thing that so many people really like about Bitcoin is because there's only going to be so many and everything. So, you know, whereas something like a Shiba Inu, there's that one is limited as well, but there's quite a few more zeros after how many are limited. But, you know, which I'm a holder. I mean, I have, you know, more than my fair share of Shiba Inu. But it was funny because, you know, just talking about how you talked about just throwing some extra into Loop Ring. I mean, I've done that where it's just you have under $100 or whatever, and just like throw it someplace. And when we were talking with Jason the other day, because I have a lot of different coins that I watch and that I have in my portfolio, and I didn't really like think anything of it, but I was like, yeah, I've got, you know, I counted up like about 10 coins, 10 to 12 that I keep an eye on, that I have in my portfolio, that, you know, I have a significant amount of money in. But he was like, oh my gosh, like you only had a few, which I didn't really think about. And part of me is just like, I'm watching and I listen to so many different things. And if I see something that really looks interesting, and it usually happens when I sell something. Like when I sold the Mike Tysons, which I've talked about a few times, I did buy some other NFTs, but there were a few different currencies that I was looking at, or tokens, and I just put a half an ETH on each one of those, so I can watch them. And if it's going way up, I'll take some profits from that and I'll turn it into ETH, or, you know, just whatever. But those are, you know, we both feel that Ethereum is going to at least double, you know, maybe triple in this next line. But there are some of those that are going to 10x or 20x, 100x.
Sure.
And that's, you know, but those aren't necessarily the rules. That's, you do get lucky. And that's what happened with the Shiba that I held for so long. It grew a ton, and but I didn't have that much. And I wasn't wish I would have been the $8,000 guy, but I was not.
Right. Wouldn't that have been sweet?
So yeah, it's just, you know, so I dabble in a lot of different things that are just interesting to me, or I think the games are going to be cool, or I like the DeFi aspect of it. But
yeah. So here's a question for you that Amy and I were talking about today. So one of the arguments for buying a couple more Ethereum was that money was just sitting in a money market account, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was making 0.1%, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Right, which is is stupid because I think it made 0.1%, 20 minutes after I put it into the Ethereum, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just dumb. I'm like, if we just put it in there, it'll instantly make that, right? But here's the bigger question, because this is what we were talking about. We have zero exit strategy, right? And you probably should have some kind of an exit strategy set up. So like with Bitcoin, we were talking about that today, and I was like, Kilted, his Bitcoin exit strategy is there is no exit.
Yeah.
The Bitcoin is always going to stay there. It's never going to leave. And when I get old and die, I'm going to give those Bitcoins to whoever, and they're going to be wealthy beyond their dreams.
Yeah.
Right. And so with Ethereum, though, we're talking, I'm like, I think, we should have an exit. So if I'm saying, let's take some of this money and throw it in there because it's only making 0.1%, we should have a plan for when we want to pull that out when it's made enough. So is it like, okay, it hits 10%? Like this is something we've been talking about lately off screen. We used to, let me change that. That was like a royal we. People who I dealt with when I was trading stocks and day trading and long-term trading, and loans, we always had a goal of 10%. And if it made 10%, you sold, you counted yourself good, and then you went through the same routine again and you went for 10%. As soon as you got 10%, you were happy. The problem is just what you just said. I'm hoping this thing 10x's. I'm hoping it 20x's. Maybe it'll 5x. Maybe it'll 4x. And so, like, take Ethereum. We both think Ethereum's going to hit 10 grand in the near future. So it's almost been up to 5. We're pretty confident it's going to hit 10. So the question is, do you wait till your money doubles, 2x's, or do you go back to your old strategy of, hey, I want it to be 10% and be happy that it's 10%? Or even when it doubles, do you take it out when it doubles? Or do you say, ooh, it doubled, here's my gut right now. If I was going to journal, which I don't journal, I know some people who do, right? I think what my gut tells me is I should set a top limit, say 2x. And when it hits 2x, anytime it drops by 5%, I sell it.
There you go.
Right? Like, I think that maybe should be how you look at it, because then you're still up 1.95. Right? Which is, you're up 95%.
Yeah. I saw a thing today. It was on Twitter, and it said when the market drops by 10%, and it showed a person like their head is barely above water.
Yeah.
And then the little picture below it says over the last few months or a year or whatever, up 900%, and they're like sitting on the bottom of the pool, like their face is sitting out. So, yeah, same idea.
That is awesome. That is awesome.
Because then you're at least playing with the house money then.
Right. Well, and I think, honestly, it's hard to pull money out of stuff like that, but I think you have to be prepared to do that. And having some kind of a limit there where you're like, yep, I'm going to pull it out at that amount. And maybe you have a buyback in too. Maybe you're like, when it starts go up by 1%, you buy back in. I imagine there's books written about this. We probably don't have to figure this out on our own.
I don't think there's any books on crypto written about
no, but I'm talking about a normal stocks. There's probably
what I've heard people say. I think we've even talked about this on an episode. Like the granny way is like, as soon as you, like you said, like if you double, you sell half, so you get your original investment back, and then it goes up another amount. You take off some more off the table, so you're always still in the game. So if it 10x's, you're still there. You just don't have as much. But in my mind, well, I bought some more Ethereum today as well.
Oh, nice. You and
So
me.
I sold my work van. Thank you.
Nice.
But my idea is that I don't need another vehicle right now. So I put it in Ethereum, and like we were talking about, and my idea is to keep it till like February, March, and see where ETH is and pull it out. It might be ready for the Cybertruck that I ordered, which is supposed to be in 2022. I don't know if it's the beginning of the year or what. I'd imagine it's probably going to be later in the year, but, or, you never know what's going to happen. But that's for me, rather than just putting it in my bank account where it's going to earn a little bit of interest, like you've talked about. I just took and I just turned it into Ethereum.
Yeah, which I think is the right call. I think that's the right on decision. I think was talking about that today at work where I'm like, you know what? You sell it, you put it in Ethereum, and then when you need another vehicle, then you pull it out. Because
Yep.
that money wasn't going to do anything anyway. It was
Mhm.
it was in a vehicle that was going to lose value theoretically, right? And so
Well, yeah, they're having so many problems with chips and everything too. Like if you're buying a truck or a van right now, I've heard it's a horrible time to buy. But if you want to sell a van or a truck, I mean, literally, I've had the vehicle for over 2 years, and I got almost what I paid for it.
which never happens.
I
Right?
bought it
They
new.
say you lose the value as soon as you drive it off the lot,
They say you lose half.
and yeah, sure didn't.
So I know they're gonna sell it for much more than I bought it for new,
Right.
because they can't get them. People aren't. I mean, it had 64,000 miles on it.
Yeah, that's just crazy.
So, I mean, I'm super thankful. We talked about that for myself and doing shows that, I'm kind of past that now, and gonna stick to doing some local stuff here and website and everything. So I'm super happy about that.
Well, and think about it this way, and maybe this is a horrible way to think about it. Maybe it's not. You think ETH is going to double,
I do.
and so you put in that 38. Not financial advice, people.
Mhm.
And it doubles. You couldn't have got that 38 if you were doing shows.
No.
So you've got to look at that you just made 74,000, right? Plus.
Hmm.
And how many shows would you have to do to get that kind of a net, right?
Yeah, to clear that. You're exactly right.
That. And so you're really confident it's going to double, which means you're going to get that amount of shows.
Yeah, especially since COVID,
Yes, exactly.
because all that's been way up in the air.
That's exactly how I'm thinking. We were talking about going to a different business than the candy, than the licorice. So
Mhm.
it's the licorice. She's been really grumpy with it for a while. I love the licorice, but I don't do all the minutia that she does.
Mhm.
So, repeatedly has talked about it. And I said, she's been yelling because I keep doing other businesses. And
Mhm.
so I was like, get rid of that. And she's like, really? You don't want to get rid of it? I'm like, listen, the other businesses are going to make more than that business.
Yeah.
So I go, that's a no brainer for me, which, I realized, and I think this is something Gary Vee and I must have in common, listening to some of his podcasts.
Mhm.
But like I was trying to think today, like what it would look like if I retired, right? So I can
Mhm.
retire, anytime pretty much.
Mhm.
So, but I'm like, why would I? I love what I do. So I wouldn't.
Yeah.
So first off, I'm doing what I love, so I probably wouldn't. But the question was, what would I do if I did?
Mhm.
And I'm like, what would I do? And I'm like, really? You know what I would like to do is, I'd like to open more businesses. And I was like, what would I do if I had free time right now? What would I do? And I'm like, oh, I for sure want to get a business up and running by Thanksgiving. So I have a
Mhm.
goal by Thanksgiving, getting a business up and running. Well, I'd be able to do that a lot. And I'm the number of ideas I come up with for doing
You
business
have so many ideas.
just stupid, and I never get to do them. And I'm like, you know what? If I was retired, that's what I would do. I'd just make business after business after business, and I'd probably just give them all away, right? Like, hey, I got a business. Hey, why don't you take this business? Hey, why don't you take this business?
Well, I really hope that you get rid of your candy business and you start this new business. I think that would be super exciting.
Yeah, that's not even the business I'm talking about. I'm talking about my other business. See,
Oh, you have another idea.
that's how many
See.
businesses I have. The other one I'm going to release on here once I get my other business up and going. So
There
you'll
you
hear
go.
about it here first, people. but I want to up and running first.
That's exciting.
I'm so excited. Anyway, we've probably talked a little bit much, but hey, thank you for joining us, Pete.
Yes, thank you.
It's been awesome. We'll probably shoot another episode here really soon. So be ready for some more content coming out. Thank you for joining us. And here's hoping that this dip is done dipping and takes off and I can look like a genius with my my Ethereum.
Heck yeah. Well, we did have, I mean, our friend, he said 7. What did he say, 7 by next week or 6?
I think he said like 7 by next week.
Yeah, I can't remember if he said 7 or 6 by next week right now. So I don't know. He's more, yeah, he's more analytical than we are. So maybe he knows something.
Well, I'm glad you and I put money into it because if it goes up to 7, you and I are looking so smart. So smart, right?
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us. This
Thank you, everyone.
Ball Buster signing off.
Kill your dragon, Jerry. Love you all.